Hi everyone and welcome to South to Cloud, my podcast about cloud and also cloud. I'm Miguel Muñoz, I'm cloud architect, and the first thing that I will do is say sorry because I'm not an English speaker and I made a lot of mistakes. Sorry, but I'm a Spanish speaker and I will try to speak English for you. And the second thing that I will do is the topic. Today we are talking about a very good service on AWS that is very unknown because the people doesn't use that is it's not a service that people can use directly, but all people use it. And we are go to the intro and later we are talking about this topic. Hey! Today we are talking about AWS Nitro system. That is a very important service on AWS that nobody knows that use it because it's not a service that we can use directly. We use when we use the AWS virtualization, and it's the secret sauce of AWS virtualization. To talk about AWS Nitro, we need to talk about how virtualization works on AWS. EC2 before 2017 works in a very different way than now because we use a very specific open source project. AWS is a project that is SAN. Why they use SAN? Because it's a very good virtualization project, and also because it has a very good thing that is the private virtualization, and we talk later about private virtualization. And if you remember all servers or EC2, all EC2 like C1, C3, M1, M2, M3, M4, that's EC2 or R3 or R4. That EC2 use send instead the new virtualization, instead AWS Nitro. And it's a very simply virtualization service. It's a core, it's a normal virtualization service that we have the host server. Also, we have the VMs inside the running on the host server, and we have the DOM 0 or domain 0. That is when we have the networking, storage, management, security, and monitoring. Basically, our input and output operation that are outside of the processor. And also we have the hypervisor. The hypervisor is the thing that convert or calls directly to the processor. And why does AWS need to move forward? Why AWS need to change the virtualization system? Okay, because hardware is better than software. And this topic that is not a beef to software developers. It's because when you run any virtualization system, any virtualization, all calls that going directly to the CPU are more efficient if you need to emulate. And that is the difference. And that is the reason that the virtualization now is very close to bare metal, to close to hardware. And in the early 2000s, that not happened because the device models. And the device model are the cards that are attached to the system, the things that are not CPU or memory, basically. Okay, and the majority of hardware vendors don't create very good drivers, for Linux in the past because Unix is not a very good, or not. It's not a very good. It's not very used on production system in the early 2000s years. And that's start to change, and hardware vendors launch more and more drivers and more efficient drivers to run virtualization system directly to the system instead emulating. And that is the difference about paravirtualization and hardware assisted virtualization, HVM. Paravirtualization is a very good thing that Zen did. And Zen tried to emulate or to try to trap calls to the device models. And emulate is not emulation, it's a very good emulation, very close to hardware, but it's emulation. And hardware assisted virtualization are calls directly to the hardware. And that is better. And that evolution is very good for AWS. We will see later. And the other thing that AWS needs to solve is the encryption. Because in the early 2000s, and maybe 2010s, the virtualization is not, in the 2010s, it's not very good. Virtualization, the encryption. Encryption are not very used. We don't use encryption because the CPU don't have enough power to encrypt all things. Now, encryption is mandatory for all workloads. And that is they need to change. And basically, is to improve performance, because the performance on EC2 is good, but can be better. And that is the reason that AWS launched Nitro. And we're talking about Nitro timeline. In 2006, AWS launched EC2. EC2 is a very good service, is one of the first services of AWS. It's not the first, it's the fourth, I think, or third or fourth, I don't remember very good. But it's a very good service and have a very good history. But in 2013, AWS notes that they have problems. They have one problem, is the primary problem is the VPC, because the VPC consumes a lot of CPU, a lot of resource on virtualization. And they try to avoid this using physical cars. And they did on 2013. On 2015, they launched C4, the C4 instance. And at the first instance, they used the Annapurna hardware. And in that moment, AWS bought the company, bought Annapurna hardware, because they know it. They launched the C4 at the beginning of 2015, and the end of 2015, they bought the company. And they bought the company to release their own hardware. And in 2017, they launched the first instance that used the Nitro system, the C5. We talk about AWS Nitro architecture because it's different to Sun, and you will understand the difference. We have the host server with the VM running on the host server, but we only have the Nitro hypervisor in the host server. We don't have the DOM 0 or domain 0. The domain 0 is outside of the host server, is attached to the host server, are in Nitro car. The networking car, the storage car, the maintenance, security, and monitoring car. That is basically all Nitro cars. And this is the main difference. These cars are attached using PCI Express. And that is very cool. And we have the Nitro cars. We have the Nitro security chip to encrypt all things. And also we have the Nitro hypervisor. And that hypervisor is very simple. The only task for that Nitro hypervisor is to virtualize CPU and memory. And that's very important because they don't need to emulate and nothing. They only do tasks that are directly to the processor. We have 4 different cards, maybe 3, but in general they talk about 4. The first card is the VPC networking card. That's offload all the VPC, is a VPC data plane offload. They takes all the VPC works and do that's work instead the processor, the VPC encryption, and also permits different things like the Elastic Network Adapter, Elastic Fabric Adapter, and in the last year the NA Express that use the SRD protocol, that is a AWS protocol, and it's very cool. These three devices, 3 adapters, are amazing because the performance is amazing on networking. It's very different than the old times. the networking performance in general with the Nitro card is amazing. If you read the difference from a C5 to a C4, it's amazing. If you read the difference from a C4 or C3, that the last C7 or C7 instance is amazing. And the next card is the storage card. Okay, instead design their own card, they use the NVMe the NVMe standard because it's standard in the industry. And also this card permit the encryption support. Okay, all the encryption about the storage, about EBS, that card do this. The next card is the local storage. They use a very cool thing because they use different manufacturers, and they use the same FTL, that is a method to use the SSCD, and they use this method, their own FTLs, because with that method they have the same performance with the multi-provider. And also the storage encryption. All local storage are encrypted, and that is very important and is very, very important for security. Okay, and the last card is the management, security, and monitoring. Okay, that is the Nitro hypervisor card or the Nitro security chip, and manage all things when you need to talk with the hypervisor, when you need to attach this, when you need to add a network interface. That is the card. And the most important thing is the performance are close to bare metal. When you have with this card, the performance is amazing. If you have tests with bare metal on AWS with the most top most large instance, is very close. It's very close, very similar, and that is amazing because if you don't lose any performance on virtualization, it's very important. And we're talking about one example of AWS Nitro. We have an EC2 instance, okay, with our Nitro hypervisor, with our server, and we are a developer that need to attach AWS. And the first thing that we are using the console or using the CLI and launch the command or SDK. And when we request AWS this to attach to the instance, that we are talking with the EC2 control plane. The EC2 control plane, we are talking with the Nitro controller and say to attach this. And the Nitro controller talk with the Nitro card, the EBS Nitro card, and the EBS Nitro card presented this to the created this and presented this to the Nitro instance. Okay, and the Nitro instance don't need to do anything, and happen the same if we attach an Elastic Network interface. Instead, calling to the EBS interface, we are the storage card. We are talking with the networking card, okay, with the VPC networking card, and that is the amazing thing because all tasks are outside of the or host server, and that is very cool because we can attach and deattach this very quickly and more efficient if we talking directly with the Nitro hypervisor, and more quick. And also we talk about Nitro enclaves. What is a Nitro enclave? Nitro enclaves is a very cool thing, and it's a service that we can use on AWS. And if we have an EC2 instance, we can create Nitro enclaves inside the server or EC2. Why? Why? Because we can isolate this workload, a very tiny workload in that Nitro enclaves, and that is very important. Use the same technology that EC2, and that use EC2 to isolate EC2 from other customers, and are isolated execution environments. An isolated execution environment means that you can read from the EC2. You can watch that you have a Nitro enclave, and you can request data from the Nitro enclave, but don't watch what happened inside. And that is very cool. It's the same Nitro hypervisor technology to isolate EC2, I told you. And what is the purpose of this? I have a lot of different purposes, but protect any sensitive process, okay? The data lake with personal information, private keys, healthcare, financial, and intellectual and property data. Okay, for example, you can request for that is very cool. You can run an tokenization inside the enclave. Call from is free and send the data directly to the enclave and send the token data to the EC2. And the EC2 consume the tokenization data, not the raw data. And the raw data are only visible for the Nitro enclave. And that is very cool because you can do a lot of different things without presenting to your EC2 instance. And it's very important for security. Nitro enclaves are amazing. And the last thing that I will say is EC2 is a core service. What means this? EC2 is a core service and AWS Nitro is a core service. You use it EC2 and you use it Nitro system in all other AWS services. Like if you use Glue, for example, you are using ECS under hood, and ECS uses EC2 basically, and EC2 uses all the Nitro system features like the performance. Or if you use DynamoDB, all services on AWS use it Nitro system, and that's the cool thing because it's a very cool service that nobody knows, and now you know it. And that is all. Thank you, and bye bye.